but just the past 2 weeks we haven't.
I think we might know. Let me just make sure. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Oh, that's your cue. Let's try it again. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. That was good. It is so good to be back together, to hear our young voices leading us in prayer, to have our youth choir with Wendy and Cantor Purple. We're so excited.
Come on.
And our 7th graders who are here as well to lead us in prayer. It is very special to join back together for Family Shabbat, to hear and to see L'Dor Vador, from generation to generation. What a joy it is. And so we are going to begin our service on the bima with the 7th graders. So the 7th graders, if you'd like to step up to the bima, you're going to be on the stairs leading us in prayer as well. And let's join together in Hine Matov with our youth choir leading us as we dwell on these words, how good and how pleasant it is when brothers and sisters dwell together in peace.
Shevet achim gam yachad. You can sing with us. Hine ma tov u'manayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Hine ma tov u'manayim. Yeah. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim. Shevet achim gam yachad.
That was beautiful. And now it's a joy to call upon Harper Bazelon and Samantha Holtmeyer and Aubrey Bronstein as they are going to introduce our service with these beautiful words.
Hi, and welcome to the 7th grade Shabbat. We are so happy that you all could join us for this special time. Leading services will help us with our upcoming Bat and Bar mitzvahs, and we're so happy you could join us.
Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our day. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael.
I love that prayer so much that we're going to hear it again in just moments from now. But first, before we do that, we're going to light our Shabbat candles. And so I'm going to ask if all of the teachers, I think that we need to celebrate teachers and educators. All of the teachers that are in the room, if you would stand so that we can celebrate you, teachers, educators, whether they happen to be religious school teachers or whether they're teachers that serve in the public school system or the private school system. And on your behalf, we are going to kindle these Shabbat lights, just like you kindle the light of Torah and knowledge within all of our young people.
Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you. What would the teachers be without their students? In Judaism, we reflect on the fact that we learn much from our teachers, but we learn even more from our students. And so I'm going to invite all of you to rise now as we think about our cups that are overflowing with blessings. And we turn for the Kiddush on page 5. And I believe the 7th graders are going to help us in the Kiddush. So let's all join together in the sacred words of our Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh zecher litziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim.
You may be seated. We are going to turn now to Lachadodi, which can be found in your Siddur on page 20. But before we do, we're going to do something a little different here. It used to be that in synagogues around the world, when you got to the final verse of Lachadodi, those who were actually in mourning, who had sat out the first part of the service, would enter in, and everybody would then stand up to greet them as they entered into the sanctuary. Not only do we think of it as those people who are in mourning, but we also think of greeting the Shabbat bride. So when we get to that final verse, Boi v'shalom, please rise and face the door, and then after the song, you'll turn back and face us as well. And we turn now to Lachadodi.
Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela la la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmianu el hameyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem ultiferet v'liti la 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 lechadoti, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha doti, likrat kala, penei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila la 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 la. Lecha dodi, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Please rise.
בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
You may be seated. We continue now with the before we do the Chatzi Kaddish, we continue at the bottom of page 27. Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time. Even at unlikely times and through unlikely places, there is no place on earth without the presence. We turn it back to page 26 and join together in the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם לעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמא, ויאמרו Amen.
So we will go ahead and stand for the Baruchu, our call to worship. And it is on page 28.
Lai, la, lai, 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 lai. Lai, la, lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, la, lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, la, lai, 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 lai. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach. Hamevorach leolam va'ed. Hamevorach, hamevorach leolam va'ed.
I'd like to call up some of our service leaders, Samantha Holtmeyer, to read for us on page 32. Actually, hold on, sorry. First, we're going to do Ma'ariv Aravim on page 30. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chochma poteach she'arim uvitvuna mishane itim umachalif et hazmanim umsader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or Uma'avir yom umevi laila, umavdil bein yom uvein laila, Adonai tzavaot shemo, El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. And now, I'd like to call Samantha Holtzmeyer up for a reading on page 32.
Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our day. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Amen.
And I'd like to call up Aubrey Bronstein to, come on up.
Now we will turn to page
34.
34 for this one.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. We'll continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 36. And that is all of our 7th graders. So if you'll come up to the stairs to lead us together in the Ve'ahavta.
Ready, set, go. Hey, Adonai Elohecha. V'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha u'chetavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem mitzvotai v'yitzam kedoshim le'Elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti Elohim Ani Adonai
Elohechem. Thank you. And I'd like to invite to the Bima our next set of 7th graders, Lacey Franklin, Anna Richer, and Ava Commissar.
Mikamoka means to me that
when Miriam sang to the sea. She wanted hope, that she and the slaves could get across the sea safely.
We'll continue with Micha Mocha on page 40.
Elim Adonai,
Anna Richer will do a reading for us on page 42.
Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, for your name's sake be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, haborei sukat shalom, aleinu v'kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim.
Amen.
May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. And may all who are hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Makadesh HaShabbat.
We're on page 57. And we're going to read Ritzeh on page 57 at the top. Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu ba'amcha Yisrael u'tefilatam ba'ahava tekabel u'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Baruch atah Adonai she'odcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. And then we'll do Hoda'ah, and Sydney Halsey is going to introduce it.
What the Purim Modim means to me is to thank and praise Adonai for what he has done for us. He has given us miracles and has brought light into our lives. This prayer also means to me how we should be grateful for what we have and what has been given to us. Adonai has taught us to never be disappointed with the things that we have. Lastly, this prayer has shown me that Adonai is a good and kind person. I think this because Adonai has shown me how to be a good Jew and how to do good things in life.
Thank you.
Amen.
We'll read together at the top of page 59. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Chata Adonai, Hatov Shimcha Ulecha Na'eh Lehodot. We'll continue with a prayer for peace. Shalom Rav on page 60.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol eit u'b'chol sha'a b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah Adonai, hamevarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom.
When we gather together, there are many important things that we need to do, and one of them is to recognize how important the generations are, not only the generations to come, but the generations that stand behind us. And so we take moments as we think about those in whom we walk in their footsteps. Particularly, we think of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, which is why we pray the Amidah. It's so that we know that even though we're standing, in a sense, in the throne room of God, that is an expression from rabbinic literature, that we have a right to stand there because of our yichus, because of those who came before us, but also because of our children and the nachas that they give us. And so we're going to turn back in our Siddur to page 205. We're going to turn back to 205, and we're going, not 205. I'm in the wrong spot. We're going to turn back to the Amidah, to the Tefillah, which can be found on page 46. On page 46, and once again, we invite our 7th graders to come forward so that they can lead us now in the Tefillah on page 46. Please rise. You may be seated now. Our seventh graders are absolutely wonderful, and they are leading us so beautifully. Hearing their voices is truly a comfort, and there are moments in our lives in which we need to feel a sense of comfort. We're told that one of the things that Rachel does is that eternally is concerned about her children. It's important to hear, to go from that moment in which we think about our patriarchs and matriarchs to thinking about those who might be in need of a sense of wholeness, a sense of healing. And so we are going to turn to our Mishaberach as we think of those members of our community who are in need of a refuat nefesh or a refuat guf, a healing of spirit or a healing of body. Particularly in our hearts and minds at Congregation Shalom, we are thinking of Shandel Bat Frida Malka, Shirley Graham, Laura Bublitz, Keturah Bublitz, Ari Bublitz, Julie Borokoff, Margot Roz, Carol Dubin, Carrie Yudkovich, Otto Feller, Samsara Vizcaya, Sharon Rotman, Eliyahu Ben Max and Emila, Bob Radke, Lau Rubel, Mark Cook, Moshe Ben Nachama, Jean Bass, Alan Turner, Judy Weingarten, Myron Dvorkin, Esther Cohen, Lauren Cheris, Matt Cheris, Lisa Firstad, Terry Finch, Harav Ilana Miriam Batchava, Faye Levin, Sarah Rachel Bat Yocheved Alexander, David Feldner, Prue Precourt, Linda Berlin, Alan Elias, Tia Barrett, Wendy Salzberg, Steve Plotkin, Kathy Peltz, Avram Ben Naftali, Emma and Max, Doug Cruz, Nadiva Sarah Bat Liba, Sharon Rothstein, Devorah Bat Yehuda Malkus, Judy Naiman, Carol Rovner, David Goldstein, Marilyn Harmon, Mark Berlin, Chris St. Martin, Ellen Futterman, Mark Ackerman, Gilbert Offenhartz, Risa Cyril Bat David Vachaya Ita, Barry Bursack, Debbie Kelly, Gilbert Offenhartz, and Janet Meister. If there are names that should be added to this list or names that should be pronounced differently, I invite you to hold those names now in your heart as we turn to words that remind us of the source of healing. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. Blessed are you, the source of healing.
We sing together. Mi sheberach avoteinu mikor habracha leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imoteinu mikor habracha la'avoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
These words of healing still echoing in our hearts and minds, we take this time for silent reflection.
Oseh shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom bimromah, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom bimromah.
Well, if the youth choir, if you want to come, first off, you are doing so wonderfully. Thank you for leading us in song so beautifully, and Miss Wendy and Cantor Perper for preparing them. So if the youth choir, if you want to come on over into those steps over there in the middle, because I like to preach to the choir, and that's what I'm going to do tonight. So, in our tradition, good, you guys can just crawl on over. All right, Churchburgers, you go, you take the lead. So, in our tradition, we speak a lot about hospitality and the importance of hospitality. We know that in this week's Torah portion, we learn about Abraham and Sarah, and one of the things that we know about Abraham and Sarah is that they loved to bring people into the tent, to bring them into the fold. And they used to sit in right at the entrance of their tent, and as people would walk by, they would greet them and bring them in, and the tent flaps would be wide open, and we know that the tent flaps of Abraham were open at all sides to invite all sorts of people into their lives. Well, that sense of hospitality, that sense of welcoming is something that has been with our people ever since, something that is important to us, something that we believe in, that we are the types of people that should be welcoming. There is a story that I want to teach you about the wise shoemaker of Studena. Have you ever heard about the wise shoemaker of Studena? All right, well, Hannah, I probably teach you that over and over again. But here's the story of the wise shoemaker of Studena. Well, his wisdom was known far and wide. People knew about the shoemaker, and they appreciated his wisdom, and they wanted him to celebrate with them in all kinds of occasions. Well, once upon a time, the wise shoemaker of Studena was cleaning his home. He was standing in his kitchen, and he was sweeping. Yep, I have props. And he was sweeping. He was sweeping up, and his wife came into the room and said, "Benjamin, I've got some mail for you." And he said, "Oh, you've got mail?" And he opened it up, and it was a beautiful invitation from this person his daughter was getting married, and he wanted the wise shoemaker to attend. And so they sent an invitation and said, "There will be a horse and cart waiting for you outside, and we're going to take you all the way to Budapest, where the wedding is going to take place." Well, the wise shoemaker had never been to a city that's as big as Budapest. He could not believe it, that he was going to have the opportunity to go there. And so he got on the horse and carriage, and thank you, Cantor. But before he did, his wife said to him, "Oh, Benjamin, you've got nothing to wear." He said, "It's okay, you know what? I've got, these duds aren't so bad, I can wear them, and there's nothing wrong with what I'm wearing, and they'll appreciate me, they want me to come for my wisdom anyway." So he got on the horse and carriage, thank you, Cantor, and they went to Budapest. And so when they arrived there, they let him out maybe a block or two away from the house, and the wise shoemaker said, "I'd really like to see the city." So he walked around, and he had never seen sort of high-rise buildings, 3 floors, 4 floors, 5 floors. He'd never seen buildings so huge. So he was looking up at the sky and looking at the buildings, never seen anything like it, until he tripped, and he fell into a puddle of mud. The wise shoemaker was so embarrassed and so upset, and he started to walk to the wedding, knowing, oh, they're going to be so upset with me. Well, look at how I'm dressed. And he came to the door, and he knocked on the door. And the father of the bride, the person who had sent the invitation to the wise shoemaker, answered. And he took one look at the shoemaker, and he didn't even give him a second to get the words out. And he said, "Out, out. We don't want any beggars here." The wise shoemaker was horrified. He felt terrible. I've come all of this way just to be able to attend this wedding, and they looked at me and they treated me like I was a nothing just because I fell into a puddle of mud. Well, the wise shoemaker decided that he was going to go for a walk and think about it. And he sort of trudged down the street until he found a store of a beautiful clothier. And he looked at all of these wonderful clothes that were in the window, and he realized that that actually was the tailor there was a good friend of his named Moshe. And he knocked on the door, and Moshe answered the door, and he said, "Benjamin, it is so good to see you. I've waited for years for you to show up. It's so nice. I've been giving you invitations forever." And they reconnected, and he told him everything that had happened. And he said, "Well, would you like some new clothes?" And Benjamin said, "Yes, I have an idea." So he went into the clothier's shop, and he decided to get changed. Well, he got into his best clothes, and he decided to go to the wedding, and he knocked on the door once again. And he had a beautiful hat on, a nice jacket, and the person who opened the door happened to be the same father of the bride. And he said, come in. And he said, "What's your name?" He says, "Well, I'm Benjamin, the wise shoemaker of Studena." And the person said, the father of the bride said, "I am so excited to see you. We've been waiting for so long for you to take a seat of honor." He placed him down on his seat and set behind him the most beautiful cutlery, or I should say silverware, the most beautiful silverware, beautiful plate, a beautiful chalice. He sat down, and the wedding started to progress, and the wise shoemaker took his spoon, and he started to take the sauerkraut that was on the side of the plate, because that's what they were eating, and he smeared it all over his shirt. And people looked at the wise shoemaker and said, "What are you doing? It's so weird." And then all of a sudden, as they served the beautiful brisket, he took the brisket and he started to pour it into his pocket of his shirt. Everybody said, "What's he doing?" He took the pickle and he started to put it in his hat. He took the chicken soup and he took it and he poured it down the shirt lapel pocket. People couldn't believe it. He took his drink and he spilled it all over his pants. And this father of the bride said, "What is going on? What is wrong with you? What's wrong with this person who is supposed to be so wise?" And he stopped the wedding. He stopped the dinner and he said, "Shoemaker, I've heard about your wisdom from far and wide, but all you're doing is smearing food all over your clothing." And the wise shoemaker said, "That's right." And the man said, "Why, wise shoemaker? Why are you doing this? It's so embarrassing." And the shoemaker looked at the father of the bride. He said, "Well, I came to your door hours ago. I had fallen in the mud, and you treated me like I was a nothing, all because you didn't like what I was wearing. Well, it turns out that I believe that the thing that you really wanted at this wedding was the clothes. So I'm feeding them." Well, the father of the bride realized his mistake. He invited the shoemaker to stay, but the shoemaker said, "I think it's time for me to go home." So he went back home and saw his wife, and he picked up the broom once again, and he placed that beautiful jacket on the broom, and he took his hat off and placed it on the broom top, and he started to sweep. And his wife said, "See, Benjamin, what happened?" He said, "Even if you were to dress up this broom, it could dance at any wedding. But what's inside, each and every one of us, that's what matters." So I want you to learn a lesson from this, guys. It's very important. I've been thinking about this story for a number of reasons these days. Today we live in a society that too often becomes afraid of or intolerant of differences. Differences when it comes to the color of one's skin, or differences when it comes to nationality, or differences when it comes to gender or sexual orientation, differences in ethnicity or culture, and yes, even in differences in how we dress. And we're hearing about intolerance all over the country and even the world. But that's not who we are. We're a nation of many origins as Americans and as Jews, and we need to validate and appreciate each other. So let us all stand up to be people that are welcoming hearts and spirits and make those institutions that we believe in places that are welcoming to all. And this past week, we were blessed to see not one, but 2 rainbows in the sky. Did you all see the rainbows? It was just beautiful to see those rainbows in the sky. They were beautiful. And watching our kids just a little while earlier at Noah's Ark Shabbat, the youngest of our congregation, we were reminded of that promise of the rainbow, the promise of the future that we can not only see in all the people around us, but particularly our children. And we're reminded of all the kinds that were together on that boat. We too are in the same boat. So let it be a boat that embraces all of us. Whether we're welcoming to Afghan refugees who have landed on our shores in need of safety or security, or whether it's in members of the LGBTQ plus community in our schools, we need to make sure that our hearts are big enough and that we remember the values of our tradition. So open your doors, the doors to your heart wide, look past that which divides us, and remember what unites us. Make our home, our ark amidst the waters like Abraham's tents, open on all sides to receive all peoples and all people. And let us say, Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. So remember, it doesn't matter what you're wearing, it doesn't matter how you're dressed, but that's what's inside, the wisdom that comes from your heart that's so important. We are now going to turn in our Siddur. We're going to turn to Aleinu. But before we do, I just want to thank Cantor Perper and Miss Wendy, our 7th grade teacher, Aaron Bergstrom, our 7th grade service leaders. You guys are doing awesome. We're so excited to celebrate many simchas with all of you. And I want to thank Brian Avner for leading our school so beautifully. And we are going to also call up, as is our tradition, and has always been our tradition, those who are celebrating birthdays. So if you have had a birthday in the past month, and maybe some of you, how many of you had a birthday in the last month? Put up your hands if you've had a birthday. Very good. How many of you had a birthday, let's say, since July? All right. So all of you have the opportunity to come forward to open up our ark doors. We ask that you still remain socially distant from each other. And we have some lollipops for all of you as well to come celebrate. We ask that the youngest members of our congregation open up our ark doors, if you'd like to open up our ark doors. And all of us, if we could rise now, as we turn to the sacred words of Aleinu, which can be found in your Siddur on page 282. Please rise.
Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, la'tet gedula le'yotze breshit, shelo asanu kegoye ha'aratzot, ve'goram כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש Baruch Hu.
And before we close the ark doors, let us bestow the Shechianu upon all of you, the blessing Shechianu for your birthdays. Are you ready?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'kizinu. Amen.
And now you can close the ark doors, and Rabbi Kozlowski has a special lollipop for all of you. And after the service, all of our young people, whether it's your birthday or not, and all those who are young at heart can come and get a small lollipop as well. So we'll have the birthday lollipops and the other lollipops too.
We'll continue with Melanie Franklin leading at the top of page 287.
May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved, each of us, for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the whole universe with joy, of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד ושמו
You may be seated, and I'm going to ask that all of the young people, if you could go back to your parents now, or grandparents. Youth choir, you can come on back afterwards. Because when we join together in moments of celebration, moments of Shabbat or holidays, it provides us an opportunity to bestow blessings upon those whom we love. And for those of you who have children that are far away or loved ones that are far away, just send your spirits out to those who are in need of a blessing as well. And so we're going to ask that the parents and grandparents, if you'd like to place your hands upon your children's and grandchildren's head, or if you're sitting next to somebody who you love and care for, if you could place your hands on their head as well. And repeat these words after me. Yisa Adonai.
Yisa Adonai.
Panav Elecha.
Panav Elecha.
V'yasem Lecha.
V'yasem Lecha.
Shalom.
Shalom.
May God always smile upon you and bless you with God's choicest of blessings, the blessing of peace. Shalom. And now, if all of the kids, if you'd like to place your hands upon your parents, your grandparents' heads, and repeat after me. May God bless the love between you and me. Say Amen. And you give a hug and a kiss. It's good to be able to bless the ones we love. And while we feel the hands of our loved ones' hands upon our heads, so too do we think of those for whom we feel their spiritual hands upon our heads as well. Whether they're physically with us or not, we feel that love that is a connection that is stronger than any barrier, whether it be death or distance. We are thinking of dear ones, members of our community who have passed into life eternal during the period of Shloshim, the 30-day mourning period. We think of Eileen Arbiter, Tony Lynn Fabric, Stephen Levy, Karen Pearson, Suzanne Salitra, Carrie Silberman, Dr. Wynne Stein-Snyder, and Neville Sender. In addition to our loved ones who we have mentioned for whom we mark the Shloshim period, we think of those who have passed in seasons gone by. And though time has passed, we still feel their presence with us as we walk in their footsteps. We think of Shirley Appel, Kenneth Arbiter, Erwin Arbiter, Melvin Ascott, Ronald Barmash, Arthur Becker, Harry Becker, Milton Becker, Evelyn Berkovisi, Wendy Berman, Florence Bernstein, Marvin Buxenbaum, Jean Cherner, Minnie Dubman, Claire Dean Fabric, Sidney Fabric, Richard Fagenbaum, Lottie Fleischer-Minkus, Ben Gill, Fanny Goodman, Paul Grant, Edith Israel, Samuel Kagan, Lillian Kolb, Max Krantz, Melvin Quass, Ismail Levkov, Jack Lichtig, Irvin London, Max Melnick, Barbara Moses, Stacy Naiman, Howard Paley, Morris Paley, Bernard Peck, Leo Peter, Helen Willett Schnoll Pinsker, Leo Pinsky, Frida Plavnik, David Rosenthal, Howard Ross, Lee Rothman, Sam Rothman, Shep Schmidt, John Schnapp, Isabel Ship, Marion Smith, Goldie Spiegler, Joseph Strauss, Samuel Sussman, Alan Sverdlin, Marcia Yanoff, Ellen Wheeler, Richard Wright. If there are names that should be added to this list or names that should be pronounced differently than I did, please do say those names out loud as I look in your direction. May your memory be a blessing. May the memories of all of our loved ones be a blessing in our lives as we think of also those who've died due to war and or terrorism, all those who've died in defense of this nation and allied nations' ideals. We think of all those who have died due to this terrible virus that has stricken our nation and our world. We think of all those who have died also due to the virus of racism and xenophobia. We think of all those who perished during the Holocaust. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled as we turn to words sanctified by memory, glorified by hope. The Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, can be found on page 294. We rise now together as one community as we recite these sacred words. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shmei Rabbah, B'alma divrach Chirutei v'amlich malchutei, B'chayecho uv'yomecho uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei amaya. Yit barach v'ishtabach v'itpa'ar v'itramam v'itnaseh. V'itadar v'italev v'italal Shmei dekudesha brichu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min Shemaya. B'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Osei shalom b'imromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen. You may be seated. In our tradition, we always turn from sadness to light. We are taught in our tradition that those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. And so it's now a joy to call upon Brian Avner first, and then our president, Brent Arnold, who is going to share some announcements as well. So first Brian, then Brent. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank and acknowledge our 7th graders who helped lead the service this evening. It has been quite some time since we had a family Shabbat service with our students helping to lead it, and it is not easy to be the first ones to do something in a school year or the first ones to do something in some time. So I want to offer a Yasher Koach with great strength. Did all of you help lead this service so wonderfully? And I'm so excited to continue to see each one of you be leaders in our community. And also a quick thank you to Rabbi Noah and Rabbi Pazlowski for helping guide them through this evening, to Cantor Perper and Miss Wendy for helping them prepare the service and choose what their parts would be, and of course their teacher Aaron Bergstrom for all that he does in their classroom. Yasher Koach again, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks, Brian. It's so great to see our 7th and 8th graders here tonight to lead us all in prayer. You guys are the future of our congregation. As much as you are learning from Congregation Shalom, we too have so much to learn from your generation. I look forward to all the great things you will go on to accomplish on your Jewish journey at Shalom and beyond. Well, it is now starting to feel and look like fall. But it was really awesome to be outside earlier tonight with our youngest congregants and celebrate our Noah's Ark Shabbat. Our youngest and newest congregants loved petting the zoo animals and bonding with some new friends. It really was a blast. Next, I want to thank Abby Habish-Schrader for her incredible dedication to Congregation Shalom. For 16 excellent years, Abby has planned amazing programs, welcomed every one of us into services, put on one heck of a Purim celebration, started movie nights with a pretty sweet candy bar, and been really passionate in connecting us all to one another. Please join me in saying thank you to Abby for all she has done to our community. She is a special person and will absolutely be missed. I'd like to welcome you all back next Friday night at 6:45 for a special Shabbat service dedicated to honoring Abby for all the great things she has accomplished here at Congregation Shalom. I also want to thank our endowment committee led by Matt Price for meeting this week and being so dedicated to the strong financial future of Congregation Shalom. Our Shalom Dayenu Circle continues to push the plan for a Jewish community solar panel farm. David Wolfson has continued to meet with Jewish community professionals as well as other politicians in Madison to try and make this idea a reality. It's a pretty exciting project. I know our 7th and 8th grade students are really excited about our weekly Torah study tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and our Saturday Shabbat service at 10 o'clock in the Kesselman Chapel. And don't forget, religious school continues Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. and Hebrew school is Tuesdays or Wednesday evenings at 4:30 p.m. Lastly, I want to thank all our young students, our madrachim, and our amazing teachers for putting on such a wonderful and meaningful service tonight. And they couldn't have done it without our wonderful clergy and our Director of Congregational Learning, Brian Abner. Under Brian's leadership, religious school is off to a really successful start. I hope each of these Shabbat experiences can continue to be stepping stones towards building more community in all of our lives. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Brent. Yesher Koach. And now we are going to turn to our closing Shabbat hymn, which is Shabbat Shalom. But first, we need our youth choir, our amazing youth choir. It is so nice to hear our youth choir sing. This is the first time in a long time, Ms. Wendy. I'd say a little over a year and 3/4, I'd say, almost 2 years. And so it is a joy to hear those young voices in our sanctuary. Again, thank you, Miss Wendy. Thank you, Cantor Perper, for leading them so beautifully. And thank you to our youth choir. So let's stand up. Let's stand together as we listen to the voice of our next generation, as we turn to the words of Shabbat Shalom. You can join in. You know the words.
Shabbat Shalom. 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 Shabbat Shalom.
We turn to these closing words of peace. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai.
not forget to come and get a lollipop if you want one. Here you go, guys. There you go. No, you guys keep the wrappers, okay?